Nerves, son, in nerves. Okay, fine. Here we go. Hi everyone, welcome to Dean's Reading Corner. I am Dineo, a village girl who loves reading, and today I want to be reviewing Mpoomy's book, How Did You Get Here? So, I want to apologize. I thought I was going to do this in December because I was done with the book and I wrote 3 scripts. Like, let me show you. So this is the current script that I'm going to be going off. And then this was the first one, and then second, and then third, and now this is my fourth. Like, I recorded 2 other videos for this and I was in like home. I was in the Lallies, got December. So I don't know how I thought I was going to do this book review when guys, I was there chopping and cooking for Mkiti. Do you understand how big December is for Xhosa people? So I don't know why I thought this was going to be possible, but here we are. Yes, apologies. This is the book review. My notes are here. My book is here. Let's get started. So what I want to talk about first is how I found myself reading this book and how we got here as readers, because I am not someone who follows celebrity culture in South Africa. I did not follow Mpoomy and I was not a fan of hers, not because I was hating or something, like I just did not follow celebrity culture. And I only knew about this book because a friend of mine on WhatsApp, Sim, was like, oh my gosh, the book is finally here. And I was like, okay, let's give it a try. Because one thing about me, guys, if it concerns books, I'm gonna give it a try. For example, let me show you the books that I've read without even like knowing or being invested in the celebrity. Fudge, this is heavy. Okay, fine. Turning around. So, flip. All these people, I was not invested in their careers to the extent where I knew everything about them. Like, oh my gosh, Barack Obama went to Harvard. But I still gave it a chance because I love reading. So after you read so many books, I just want to say, also Will Smith's wife. I want to say, after you read this amount of books and autobiographies by authors, you kind of get a sense of how they go. Like, they start from how they were in their childhood, their formative years, and the values that they gained, to when, the call of adventure, where it's like, okay, fine, this is the career that I want to embark on, going to their first big break and where they are now. So that's the kind of formula and the kind of format that these books usually follow. Mpoomy did not do that. And I'm not hating because, if you want to change up the script here and there, go for it. But that was something that was a bit surprising to me. And something else that you always get used to is in the middle of the book, the author is going to put in pictures of their lives. Like, they will talk about, my childhood this and my childhood that. So I'm picking up Viola Davis's book, and she also has this middle part that's pictures. This book, for her followers, especially for people who follow her wisdom and wellness page on Instagram and who engage with those reflection prompts, this book has a reflection at the end of each chapter and a space for you to write. So if you're talking about, now, let's, for example, take the prompts in Elephant in the Room. How do I handle confrontation? How do I deal with an issue when do I deal with an issue when it arises, or do I let the issue first and then explode? And then if you write about, Bethany stole my leather jacket, and then you lend Bethany the book, can you see how awkward it's going to be? So this book is not meant for you to be lending it out to friends. Buy them their own copy. She said that. Okay, so we start with part 1, and part 1 is basically introducing the book and why she wrote it, introducing a family, because to know the person, you need to know where they come from. I love the sentiment, and that was at the start of Birthday Cake, where she's introducing her parents, and then she's talking about, the people in her life, including grannies and siblings. So when we go to the first chapter, Elephant in the Room, she talks about why she wrote this book. And what she saw was we have common themes that we need to heal from. For example, as South Africans, including your relationship with your parents, things like sexual assault. And she said we all have these themes, and then she's just telling her story. So that's okay for people to tell their stories. And I think it's such a brave thing, guys, to put a story out there, all the good and bad parts of it, so that people can heal from it. And yes, that's my favorite line. Page 6 of this book, she talks about when generations heal, women heal. When women heal, generations heal.
As the adage says, you give a poor man a fish and you feed him for a day. You teach him to fish you give him, no.
So Birthday Cake is about his father and how, yes, guys, he had to hustle from a young age. This guy was like, first day of school, imagine, I need to find a job. He did not even have a uniform. And so she's detailing his life, and like he was a truck driver and how he, became the man that he is, where he's providing for his family. Another thing that I like about this book is you grow with Mpoomy with the pages. So she talks about, hey, I had to go to school walking, for example, then we moved from this neighborhood to a more affluent one, and like you rising with the ranks, the class ranks with her. And I thought initially it's such an inspirational thing, because as South Africans we have better odds in moving upwards in terms of rank compared to other countries. And in South Africa, if you hustle hard enough, it's kind of like, yeah, you can do this, you get an education in a good degree, you get a good job, and you can find yourself middle income, compared to where you were like lower income. But I also want, like, now I was thinking about it, is like, is that really true? Because at best her father was, and the whole family, let's say upper, okay fine, maybe lower middle, or like upper middle class, and this guy was like a business owner, and he managed to lend her some money when she started her own business. So we can't compare. Some of us have parents who like, hey guys, hey, you're on your own, good luck to you. So it's like both things can be true at once. Like in South Africa, you can hustle hard enough for you to be able to afford the life that you want to live, but at the same time, let's not ignore the privilege that she had with the type of father that she has, and parents. That's both parents actually. But anyway, just a little tidbit I thought about when I read that chapter. Then we go to Not Planned But Loved, where the girlie was not planned. The parents, the mom got pregnant when she was 22. They were not married, and it was like, let's hide the pregnancy until the lawyer is paid. Otherwise, they'd have to pay damages, the father's side. So in Feel the Pain, that's where I kind of want to like, okay, fine, let's dissect it a bit further. So she's talking about growing up black in white schools. And she talks about this incident where one day she was in the playground and she fell on barbed wire. And everyone else was like, vibes. Like she fell on barbed wire, like her face was bloody and messy. And the kids were like, I guess I'll see you in class. And they just took her to the school nurse. And the nurse was like, oh, okay, you're fine. And it's only when her mother saw her, and then she saw the horror on her face, but this was actually a deep and serious injury. And if it was a white kid, they would not have reacted like this. And I just wanted to say, for this, guys, it's brave of her to talk about the black experience in white schools. But now I'm thinking, it's brave, for real, because her kids are growing up in white schools. I mean, if she's someone who lives in Sandton or Bryanston, like one of these Joburg neighborhoods, then obviously she's in like a white center, white space. And she is now saying, guys, I don't think that white people give the same grace to black women that they would afford to white girls. And I don't think that white people see us as people who can feel pain to the same level that they can. I was like, girl, damn. Which is true, because you know how gynecology was invented on black women without anesthesia. It was like, I don't think black people can feel pain. And there's so many other things to touch on in terms of how a lot of other medical discoveries were made on black bodies without painkillers, because that was thought like just black people don't feel pain the same way we do. So I think that was very brave of her to include in this thing. And it's actually such a sad thing for a young child to feel that I don't think I matter as much as Stacey does, for example. Yeah, it's like a terrible thing. But brave of her to put that in here. I loved it. And then in Silver Threads, she's paying homage to her grannies and just talking about how they grew up. One of her grannies, paternal granny, can't even read, but she knows the Bible back to front. And that's an amazing thing that she instilled in her grandkids, to love the Lord and praise Jesus, Yeah, love it for her. And then we get to A Feminist is Born. And yeah, so here, A Feminist was born. She's talking about how she realized she was a feminist, ne? Okay, fine. She was a child. She's the firstborn. And then she has a sister. And then the last born in their family is her younger brother, Uncle Jack, they call him. So when she was a kid, she was sharing her room with her sister. And then the parents were like, Uncle Jack has to have his own room. And then she was like, I'm the oldest, yeah. Then she asked her mom, like, I don't think that, in a sense, I don't think it's fair. And then she ended up getting the room. And I like the thing where it's like now you're becoming conscious of how young girls and boys are treated, and you're like, on what basis though, you know? So it's a value story. But then from the title, like A Feminist is Born, I expected more. So she's talking about how this room situation came about, but I wanted to engage further on the ideology of feminism. For example, has it ever affected any of her relationships that she's a feminist? Has it ever created conflict in the church that she's feminist? Because there's a lot of schools of thoughts that's like, I don't think it's a Christian thing for women to be feminist because your main thing is to be submissive, you know? So I wanted her to engage on those things, like, how does this belief in you saying I'm equal to men basically equate or contradict to any other beliefs that you may have in life? But she didn't do it. But I think it comes later on in the book where she says, hey guys, I'm a feminist and I know that my role as a mom is to empower my young daughter to see herself as that. So it comes on beautifully, but still I wanted further engagement, but hey, it didn't happen. It is what it is. Okay, fine. And then we go to my first heartbreak, which is a story of how okay, fine. Let me just tell the story. Okay, fine. Mpoomy had this friend who went to a Muslim school, female best friend, right? And she went to a Muslim school, so she wasn't going to have a matric dance. Mpoomy started dating this guy who was going to have his own matric dance. So she's like, hey, since you are going to Muslim school, you're not going to have this matric dance, go with my boyfriend to his matric dance, and then you can experience it, and then it's going to be my date at my matric dance. Then she's like, yes, solution. Guys, and then they started dating. The best friend and the guy, and she was like heartbroken. No. And I can imagine, hey guys, friendship breakups. And so now she's feeling betrayed. It was like before trial exams, and she was just depressed until one night a text came where the girl was like, it wasn't worth it, I'm so sorry. And Mpoomy has a really forgiving heart because she forgave her. And this girl was still a bridesmaid yake when she married Brandon at like 22, which I understand because the age gap between 18 and 22 is not that big for you to be like, okay, fine, now I'm changing who I am. But at that age, you are taking away boyfriends. And this person is supposed to be like your sister because she's your best friend, ne? And she did this. It's not about the thing, like, oh, it's just a boyfriend. But at the same time, it's like, girl, the principle of the matter is you would betray me like this, and I went out of my way to make sure that you have this experience. Better heart than me, because I would never. Titi, I forgive you, but like in we should not be in our lives. But actually, they actually ended up breaking up as friends. It's like, hey, we just grew apart. We were not the same anymore. The last two chapters of this part one include Angry Black Woman and My First Flight. So My Angry Black Woman is about how her mom was way too strict when she was raising Mpoomy. So she used to beat them up and jay at the slightest thing. And she has this example of like, she forgot to take out a mop out of the bucket after she mopped. And then the mom was like, come back home. It was a hot day. She had already arrived at the friend's house. And she's like, hi, mama. So she's talking about how she was way too hard on her. And it was not necessary sometimes. And she got her mom to apologize. Guys, when I read that part, I was so shocked. Like, an African black mother apologized to you. Are you serious? Because if I was rich and successful and famous, and I told my granny, I think you're too hard on me growing up, she'd just say to me, hey, did it not pay off? Are you not successful now? I think, let me know. But the probabilities of her apologizing. I'm joking. She's a nice, an amazing lady. And thank you, Oko. I want to say I take issue with that title because this title, Angry Black Woman, is usually used in professional settings where women are talking about injustices that they face. For example, hey, this is a microaggression when John said this to me. And now you making it a title of this chapter to talk about your mom. It's just two different things because now your mom had you when she was 22, basically a child herself. She was still trying to figure out life, and now she became the mother that she always had, basically. So if her mom was strict, that's how she thought what being a mom means, yeah, mom? And so for you to use this title like Angry Black Woman is like, it's two different things. That's what women are called when they call out injustices and microaggressions. And now you're saying your mom was an angry black woman. But that's what black women are saying. Like, don't call us angry black women by pointing out injustices. I think this chapter could have been titled something differently. But you know what? Yeah. It is what it is. And then the last chapter in this part was my first flight, where she was in grade 4 and she went to Cape Town for the first time. So this was like a school trip where they either went to Durban or to Cape Town, and everyone else was going to Cape Town, and her parents were like, yes, sis, can we afford to take you to Cape Town? But they made it happen. And so now they're at the airport and the kids are like, yo, did you see Mpoomy's mom's boobs, guys? The cleavage. And what else now? She lied and said, yeah, she's been to Cape Town before and she flew before. And she's saying like, bruh, this is basically, I'm denying myself the feeling of like, this is my first experience doing this, and that excitement, because you want to feel like you fit in. And then we get to part 2 of the book, I Am the Magic. Honestly, this part had 2 of the worst chapters that I hated in this book. Let's talk about it. So, when this chapter opens, we have 2 things, chosen and I quit. Okay, fine. So, chosen starts off like this. I am not feeling well. And with that, my journey with accounting and university ended. Okay, fine. Then she starts talking about how she got into accounting in the first place. She was in grade 8 and she had gotten she studied really hard for an accounting test and she got 43%. And she's like, accounting, it's me and you. So she embarked on a 7-year revenge journey. Yeah, and I'm like, okay, valid, because she went out to prove herself. Like, I'm not just some pretty dumb girl. You know, like when you have something to prove, sure. Then the next paragraph is talking about her father dropping her off at UJ. And he said, if you fool around, you will work here. And he was pointing at Campus Square, yeah, and she said, as if working at Campus Square is the worst thing that could happen to someone. Just, okay, follow me. It opens with, I quit. I went into accounting because I failed the test in grade 8. My father was dropping me off at UJ. And then she talks about what the best things UJ did for her. Because I'm thinking now, are you going to talk about why you quit? Like, was it hard from day one into your accounting, where in first year you said to yourself, I hated this? And if you dropped out in third year, guys, that's like the degree is done. If you're writing June exams, you have 6 months left to do this accounting journey. Like, did you hate everything? Did you hate everything? Did you hate ecos? Did you hate accounting? Did you hate tax? Did you hate, management, accounting, and auditing? Did you hate everything? Why not stick it out if you're already here at this journey? That's what I was asking myself reading this part, né? And I thought that was going to be answered, but no. She talked about the community that she built in the University of Johannesburg and the best friend that she had, Udi. And then she talks about when she drew a dress and then the father went to like a fabric company to buy the fabric for her to make that dress. And then she talks about after dropping out, she was in a modeling agency that she ended up dropping out of because she drops out of any space that doesn't make her feel worthy. And I was like, okay, valid. But did we ever go back to the accounting training and why she quit? No. See, this is what I hated about this chapter. It assumes that the reader already knows the reason. And you have people like me who's like, I don't follow your YouTube channel and I just picked up this book because I'm interested in reading. Yeah, so it's like, can you please be detailed in the story that you tell? But this one, I found it lacking, and it was so frustrating to read because it's not going in chronological order. It's going from this to this to this. And what is the thought process behind this? Like, I find it so frustrating and I almost quit the book. I think I had to give myself an hour break to be like, I don't know what to think. Like, what the hell? And I was binging this book. Bro, I was reading this book in malls. I was reading this book when I was being driven to work. And like, guys, this one, I just had to be like, I'm sorry. I had to like, And then I get to the next chapter, which is titled, I Quit. And I thought that was going to be an elaboration of the accounting journey. It wasn't. It wasn't. But here she was talking about her first job with her father. She was making him tea in the mornings, and yeah, she quit because the wages were too low. I like that. Hey, she knows her worth, yeah, so like the wages were like 100 rand, and then she was like, no, I quit. And then she talks about working at Spur, where there was this young couple, actually a white couple. There was a white couple that no one else wanted to serve, and the couple that usually served them, I think it was like 2 Zimbabwean people, the couple that usually served them were busy, and so she was like, okay, I'm gonna take it up. And then they finished their plates, and then they called the manager, and then she went out the back to cry. I said, what happened? What did they say? take us through this, because it's just jumping. In one of these 2 chapters, I felt like she gave herself a prompt, but this is what I'm going to write about today, and she did not have enough time to really think about how the story flows in these 2 chapters and the dialogue, because in every other chapter she will talk about like you feel like you're being there. For example, breaking up with a friend in grade 12, like the dialogue between the 2 of them, like, oh, she said this, he said this, his facial expression was like this, né? In this chapter, none of that is there. And it was like you remembering something and you're writing about something that you forgot in some parts. And I was like, girl, I hated this. So after these 2 chapters, I asked myself, is the book going downhill from here? And is it worth completing? But again, I feel the need for closure every single time. I feel the need for closure every single time, so I finished. So these following chapters, Stepping Stones, Perfect is Not Perfect, You Can't Google Cows, and Growing Pains, are chapters about her relationship with Brandon and making it out of the hood, guys. They're hustling. And like, for example, she dropped out of accounting, and there was no plan. She just left UJ and she didn't know what else to do. But now she's like watching Stephen Furtick's sermons, amazing guy. So she's watching those sermons and she's now dating Brandon, and she's like, okay, fine, I'm trying to get my life in order. She's going to a beauty school. She's opening her nail and hair salon, and yeah, those things. Like, these are the chapters where she's talking about the genesis of their relationship and the hustle in their careers, where they're both working hard. She had this car, traded up for a new car, things like that. Like, things are hlanganing, all of a sudden. Then we get to You Can't Google Causes about how they got married. I wanted details on this. Like, this is the one chapter that I would want to see the pictures that she was referring to, because she talked about, my wedding dress was from this place and it cost this amount. Like, I would have liked to see the picture she had in mind when she wrote about that, instead of her like having to Google. And then we get to The Good Wife. Now she's talking about how she expected to have sex like every single day, and here she's like good-naturedly laughing at herself, like, hey guys, this is what I expected a good wife to be. I would clean every single day, clean like every crevice for every single dust particle, and then I find myself exhausted. And Brendan was like, girl, I do not marry you for you to be a cleaner and a cook, like, calm down. And then something I like that she acknowledged was that she thought that she was going to find her purpose in Brandon's purpose, because you know how in evangelical spaces, wives are usually termed to be a helpmate, so your husband's goal is to be this big fancy lawyer and you're supposed to be the one supporting him. Or if your husband has this gift of like being a pastor, you're going to be pastor's wife. But like, your journey is like, your goal, your value, your purpose is always to be like his support, and then she grew out of that very fast. It's like, hey, I have my own purpose, I have my own journey to go, and here's this, I will support him, but I also like need to pursue my goals. And I really love that, because a lot of young women in churches need to see that you can pursue your own goals. So really love that part. And then she gets to My Foot Grew. Let me read you the first line of this chapter. None of my pregnancies were planned. I'm just extremely fertile, and Brandon's pull-out game is a hit and miss. Yeah. There's something Nicki Minaj will write. Make that pull-out game weak. Oh, that's Megan Thee Stallion. Guys, I read this like pull-out game. What? Anyway, now she's talking about her pregnancies. Like, she did not expect to be pregnant with both of her pregnancies. She just, like, for the first one, she was going to gym, and the body was not doing what the body is supposed to be doing. She's like, it's time to take a pregnancy test. Especially like, she vomited after a gym class, and she's like, okay, fine, I need to do this. And then she did. Turns out she was pregnant. Nuri is number 1, I think. And then for the other one, it was Zani. And yeah, it was a much easier pregnancy. Thank you. She details her third pregnancy. She was sick. She was burnt out. The girl was doing a lot. She's a wife. She's a mother. She's an entrepreneur. And she's just busy. Like, every part of her life is full. And then she discovers again, but no, man, it's giving pregnancy. And immediately she's like, I do not want to have this baby. And she's honest in that, but if I had this baby, 2 things were going to happen. I was going to resent this child and she was going to feel unloved, or I would die in the process like die internally at the process of having this child, because I really don't have the resources to have this child. And what happened was they found out that the child is growing out of the womb. It was an ectopic pregnancy, and then she took an abortion pill. Guys, for a Christian woman to talk about abortion in such a healthy light where it's like, this was a matter of my health. Like, if I did not terminate this pregnancy, it was going to be a danger to my life. And talking about in a way that's compassionate and real, in the fact that I didn't want the baby in the first place, because there's women who would keep the baby even though it was growing out in the fallopian tube, and it's like, you know what, I'll take my chances, you know. And she was like, I didn't want the baby in the first place. And I think it's like a really nice thing, because even though South Africa is not that judgmental and we're very progressive in some respects, there's a lot of respects where we're conservative in terms of culture and religion. So for her to talk about this, I think it's like a very positive thing. And I want to make note, she does not use abortion like as a, like sex, what is it? She does not use abortion as a contraceptive, because she was on all these contraceptives and they all did not work. This girl was on the patch injection, the pill, and she still fell pregnant. I was like, damn. Now she's right. Okay, she's fertile. She's fertile for real. She's fertile for real. And then we get to Some Things Fall Apart, where she's detailing the issues that she had with her marriage with Brandon. Yeah, bon? Okay, fine. So when we started like these chapters, the earlier chapters about their relationship and when they first got married, she talked about how they would fight and she would storm out and go to the car. Yeah, bon? And she eventually grows like, I don't want to be that type of wife. I don't want to be that type of person who shouts at people, yeah. And then she stopped shouting at him. And I like that honesty, be like, hey guys, I was still starting out. We were both broke and figuring things out, but this is not the type of person that I want to be. And she stopped. For her to have that honesty to own up to that, amazing, eh? Then now here, she's basically peaking in her career. Like her popularity is rising. And now the marriage is falling apart because they're just so busy. They don't have time for themselves. They're just in these roles as parents and then as partners. She talks about growing distant because of like how busy they were. Then they went on a trip to Bali and they reconnected. The friendship, the love, it was there. Then when they came home, turns out their apartment had flooded. Their house had flooded. And the way they dealt with those things was just so different. She went into problem-solving mode. Brandon was feeling his emotions, which I love. Guys, men should feel their emotions. And the frustration that built and then the resentment that built between each other, like that's the thing Yogu is like, okay, fine. Now marriage is like at the brink of divorce. And in fact, it got to the point where they were only talking to each other when it concerned the kids. And it's like, hey, are you buying bread today? Are you taking Nuri to school? And they went on a trip. Oh, and they were working on a podcast together. Yes. So they were working together on those things, kids and then the career. And then they decided to go to a trip in Dubai that they had already planned. It's like, let's not cancel. Let's just take the kids to Dubai. When they were in Dubai, they were like, okay, fine, we should get a divorce because this is not it. They agreed. And then that's when the marriage picked up, because it's like, we had to give up this thing that we wanted to save for us to save it. And that's when they grew stronger. I'm assuming they went to couples therapy. But yeah, I am glad because they seem like amazing partners, eh? Like their journeys and their goals and their destinies are so similar and aligned. And like Brent is an amazing partner for him to support his woman to the point where, okay, fine, you can be a success. I believe in you. Even for this book, it's like, hey, babe, do what you like. He's so supportive. I love that. Yo, guys, okay, fine. Some things fall apart. And then the 7-year itch, also detailing some issues in their marriage. Hey guys, but it was resolved. I love it for them. Then we get to part 3, the cost of the calling. Ne? So high level, this was just about the challenges that exist when you're a well-known person. For example, some people, there was a campaign on Twitter apparently where someone was like, hey, this girl is just a mean girl who's hiding behind Christianity. And people are piling on and agreeing. And then she was like, you know what? That's negativity. I'm just going to go back to the word of God to align with my purpose. This is what he made for me. This is what he meant for me. This is what he's going to put in my path. And this is the purpose that he gave me, which is amazing. Okay, fine. So we're in chapter 21, At What Cost? And here she's talking about following the purpose that God has set for her life. And at the same time, the hypocrisy that comes with it. Okay, fine. So let's get into it. So she talks about being in bed with a man that she has no business being in bed with. And how that was eating at her because she's having a lot of intercourse. And she loves having intercourse. But at the same time, That's not what's being taught at church. At church, it's like, if you want to be a good person, if you are saved, if you are following God's plan for you, you need to save yourself for marriage. And she's still doing this premaritally. And I just need to point out that in the earlier chapters in part 2, where she's talking about the beginning stages of her relationship with Brandon, she also said she was having sex with him, but she used to feel guilty, even though they both knew that they were going to get married to each other. Yeah, but so even though we are now talking about this in this chapter where she's like, I confessed my sin in the circle that, like, I think the worship group that she was in, we still know that future down the line, she still used to have sex premaritally. Yeah, but not judging, I'm just saying. So anyway, I'm just saying it's not in chronological order, is what, like, keep that in mind. Like, this is before Brandon Gil, okay? Well, so she's confessing to this worship group, but guys, now I have this temptation, this thorn at my side, and people are supportive. And then in the next chapter, she's like investigating, why do I feel the need to have sex like this? Yeah, well, like, she does it for this need to be in control. She initiates sex so that she feels like she's the one in control, yabo, and in charge of the situation. Then we get to this part where she's talking about his sexual assault. She was in grade 8 at a new school, and then there was this boy she had a crush on, and he was like older. Let's say if she's in grade 8, then he must have been in grade 10, 11, or 12, yabo. And she had a huge crush on this guy, but I think he was dating, and the only time where they did something was when they went to sports trips, like maybe going to a netball thing, hockey match against another school. They're going by bus most. So she'd sit at the back of the bus with this boy, and they would be kissing, you know. Then things escalated this one night after she found out her granny had died, and emotions are heightened. She's feeling vulnerable, and then she texted this guy, my parents are not at home, you can come over. And then guy was like, say less, I'm on my way. Then she met up with him. He was quiet, and she was chatting, and it's like, why is he being so quiet? So they're making out on the couch, and then the guy is like, hey, let's move things to the bedroom. Then they're making out there, and then things are escalating, and she's like, no, I'm not comfortable with this. She said no. Yeah, but she was like, it's in a tiny, quiet voice, but I said no. But the ordeal went through anyway. And then now she's walking him home, and then the roles are reversed where he's now chatty and bubbly all of a sudden, and then she's quiet. I really like that she mentioned that, because the writing there, like the poetry, I love that. It's like good writing skills. And she wrote about this chapter so perfectly. Like, she's taking you through all the thoughts, like she's back at that night, and she's taking you there with you for the journey. And I just need to point out her age. I want to point out age. She's in grade 8, so she was 14 years old. And something else that's like really heartbreaking about this is how this guy never gave her attention and was only kind to her when he knew what was gonna come, like the kisses at the back of the bus and things like that. And she mentions, I was never his girlfriend and he never asked me out, but the attraction was evident. He was kind when he knew that he could have a moment with me, but for the most part he ignored me. I was desperate for his attention. Guys, like, the honesty and vulnerability in that is breathtaking, but also so heartbreaking for a child to experience this. It happens a lot, but for the consequences that it resulted in. So immediately after the ordeal was done, she was walking him home. Then when she got back, she called her older sister. And it's those things, by 5 kutata, but by 3 mama. Yeah, so older sister, and the older sister immediately told her mom, which was a good thing, even though at the time she felt betrayed. Yeah, and then the mom, when they came home, they did not show any reaction. It was like, okay, and then the next morning she beat her up. I could feel the love, the disappointment, the anger that my mom had. But at the same time, I'm grateful that happened, because if not for that, she would have had like a 16-year-old child. Okay, fine. So based on these 2 chapters, and about this topic on sexual assault, I just want to make a general societal comment that is not exactly like critiquing what she wrote or passing any judgment on what she wrote. I'm not doing that. This is a story, and we need to believe survivors. And I am just saying this because South Africa is very high in GBV. So I just want to just make a general comment. Again, this topic of sexual assault, especially in South Africa, is a very nuanced conversation. I am only going to touch on sexual assault and religion, like she's tied in this book. So yes, how she mentioned it before was like, hey, I'm in church, but at the same time I feel guilty for having sex, but I love having sex, you know? And then when she digs deep into a relationship with sex, she finds out that it's actually because of sexual assault, né? Okay, fine. Something else I did not mention was the fact that she talks about being sexually assaulted by this boy, and then she was giving a conference online, I think in 2020, like those COVID years, and the expert was talking about these issues, or saying sometimes you even forget that you were sexually assaulted because you don't realize that this is something that's wrong that's happening to you when you're a child. And then it rushed back to her, like she froze in the spot where it's like, flip, this has happened before. And that's why the title of this chapter is Not Once But Twice, where she realizes that when she was a child, there was a family friend like uncle level, basically, someone older than her, and she, like, this guy used to play games with them, ne? And this was basically her being molested. When she talked to her younger sister about this, the younger sister was like, yeah, that happened to me too. And she talked about this with a cousin, and the way that cousin looked at her just like shut her up about, oh, this is something you need to be ashamed about, this is something that you should definitely not talk about. So yeah, Giselle will always be famous Betuna. Shame needs to change sides. So anyway, to make this broader comment, so she's talking about 2 sexual assaults here. This is based on molestation that she had even forgotten as an adult, where she faced as a child. And the second one was when she was in grade 8. Here, okay, fine. Setting that scene. General broader comment based on sex and the religious aspect of that. Okay, fine, ne? So here she's saying when she went through this, what she thought initially was, flip, I am committing a sin, and whatever defined me as pure as a woman, whatever defined my purity, has now been taken away. It's gone. You know? This person is going through sexual assault, and the first thing going through her mind is like, I'm sinning, I'm no longer worthy, and I'm no longer pure. And I find issue with this because in a lot of evangelical spaces, we task purity culture to women especially, and we never do it with boys, where it's like, you need to save yourself for your future wife. It's always the inverse, where it's like, you need to save yourself for your future husband. And it's an issue because it's saying to women, to young girls as well, that your value lies in your purity and your lack of sexual experience, yeah, mom? And if we just think about the contradiction for that for a second, like, South Africa has very high stats of GBV, and there are high chances of you being molested without you even knowing. For example, like she said in this book, yeah, especially if you come from a lower income class where the protection of young girls is not top on the priority list. Go on. So now she's saying, this happened to me, I've been raped, but who's feeling the shame? Who's feeling the sin of what just happened? It's her. Ne? And she was in church. She was a person who wanted to save herself for her husband, you know? And then now this happened. And I just want to say, guys, that issue, but it's wrong for I want to say as well, if you got sexually assaulted and you think you lost your purity, I don't think this is something like, if you define yourself, but I'm no longer a virgin because of this, I disagree that heavily, because that was not consensual. You cannot say that drowning is swimming. This was not a consensual act that happened to you. So you can't say, bam, I committed a sin, I am no longer pure. Yeah, but this is the main cause. But now women who have gone through this feel dirty and they feel the shame. We don't do much to judge the perpetrators of these crimes, ne? And that's a deeper thing that needs to, I don't have the degree to actually go into the nuances of this, but I feel deeply about this topic. But now it's girls who are supposed to be feeling the shame. Like, guys, okay, fine. On a lighter note, I just want to say I am a Christian and I follow Jesus. And I think that sexual shame and sexual guilt are one of the things you waste the feeling. You waste. Because, okay, you are criticizing young kids from exploring their bodies. Why is that a topic in church? Like, but like I said, I feel like this is like a waste of a feeling, the whole shame and guilt on having sex and you want to explore your body. But when she talked about this, I thought she was gonna deeply engage on that, you know, where she's telling young girls, but hey, I don't think this was actually something that is worthy of you to feel shame over. It's okay to explore your body, especially since she had recognized those feelings and still continued doing it with, you know, the future husband that she had. But she didn't, because even though she was doing this, still she felt some guilt. Go on. But guys, anyway. But anyway, moving from that heavy topic, the book picks up from that, and she talks about motherhood, her career, and being a wife. She has things like sign of abundance, and she was talking about her grace tree. She talks about instilling boundaries and teaching her daughter about your no is enough, like both the kids actually, but especially her daughter, where, you know, the no's from women are usually just like, it's not a no, it's just a negotiation thing. Come on. Yeah. So the book picks up and is now more coherent, and this is where she's coming to the fore as like a great author who has reflected on what makes her strong. Yeah, no shame from the last chapters of this book, especially with this whole thing of a sign of abundance, guys. That part where she's like, I don't, religion is carry a lot of people poor, but if you really engage with the word of God and you go out in nature, you see that God wants abundance for all of us. So why are you, go on. I find that really beautiful. And she talks about our biggest calling being abundance. She talks about making a first million at the age of 27. And yeah, no, this was a great book. Because of that, I would say this book is one that I recommend, and that you need to read thoroughly, like she intended, where you read and then you deeply reflect on your own journey and things that you need to heal from. But yeah, those 2 chapters that I didn't like, guys, you know, I guess she's a first-time author, you know. This was a great first book from someone who did not partner up with an established author. Like, oh no, they partnered up with Sunyati with that book, and it was like 10 out of 10. It was 10 out of 10. Like 9 out of 10 because it ends. -1 because it ends. That book was amazing. But for a first-time author here, where she's doing this, she wants to tell her story herself authentically. Aisha, great effort. And she's someone who comes off as ambitious and very smart, you know. And because of how ambitious she is and how creative she is, I don't think she should limit herself in terms of the format of her next book, because there will definitely be another next book. And I think that she needs to take a more creative risks with like the books and how she writes. She can have a mind map and like, this is what makes Mpoomy up: feminism, believing in abundance, believing in God, being a wife, being a mom, like things like that, where you take creative risks and you chose, yeah, but especially she has like a reflection chapter as well, yeah, but for the next one she can even tie the core beliefs that she has to scripture that she has. But see the type of person that she is, like everything is tied with God and her purpose, and she's very ambitious. So yeah, great book. I would recommend. These pages are definitely worth getting lost in. Gosh, I really wanted to be more coherent on that last part about the sexual assault thing. Basically, your value is not tied to your sexual partners as a woman, and if you want to explore your body, go for it. Yebo? Yes. And on that note, I just want to introduce my 2 guests over here. This is Emma. This is Lily Pritchett Tucker, my Lily. And these plants, I bought them when I said I'm gonna I want to have a YouTube channel reviewing books, and Emmanuel got me these plants. So welcome to the babies. Mr. Fuzzy to the sky, the summer.